Fortunate now to have a presentation from Dr. Yolanda Martinez. She's the overall lead for the Govstack initiative at the Digital Development Bureau at the International Telecommunications Union at the United Nations. She's a digital government and development expert. She's passionate about public sector innovation, okay, GovTech, basically leveraging emerging technologies for social good, and also promoting women in the technology field. She works for the ITUs, I mentioned before, and she's looking at techniques to accelerate the digitization of government services, throughout globally. She has extensive experience in digital development, digital government open data, and digital skills, and she's led multidisciplinary teams in creating them. She has a PhD in knowledge and the Information Society from the University of Catalunya, and she has a master's in public policy and management from Carnegie Mellon, and a bachelor in information technology. So very much a holistic, multidisciplinary individual that we call upon for leadership in these times. So without further ado, Yolanda, over to you. I look forward to listening to your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Robert, for the opportunity to be here. It's my great pleasure to present on behalf of the multi-stakeholder partnership that is behind Govstack, progress on the initiative, and a call to action for the community and the audience participating in this conference to be part of it and to help us build common technical specifications and protocols that can accelerate the digitization capabilities of government around the world, working in making government services better. I will share my screen. Kindly just confirm if you can see it correctly, please.
Yeah, I confirm, just put in presentation mode.
Is it there?
Yep, we're good.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to be here and to be part of this third digital transformation in government conference. I know you have a very intense activity and a previous presentation by the digital team of Canada, which is one of the leading nations using a reusable software component approach. So it's very much aligned to what Govstack Global aims to be. And during the next 40 minutes, we're gonna structure the conversation in following four main share with you motivation behind Govstack Global Initiative, what are the challenges and progress on digital transformation in government services. Second, we're going to have an opportunity to share with you the concept behind Govstack model as a way to approach a holistic digital government reusable software components or building blocks to accelerate the digitization of government services and reach a scale. Three, what is the approach that has been set up in place so far? And four, how you can join us. Govstack is an open, community-driven effort, and the more expertise we have from multidisciplinary aspects of digital transformation in the public sector, the more value that we can deliver. And I hope to have a very rich Q&A session after finishing the presentation. So to get started, as most of you know, one of the major challenges that developing countries face when approaching digital transformation journeys as a state policy can be clustered in four. Number one, coordination, having the right mandate and the highest political support to embrace digital transformation as a state policy, with enabling ICT authorities that can have the transversal mandate to set up standards, protocols, approaches that can really allow all government agencies to better appropriate and incorporate information technologies into the daily operation, but especially in really reshaping the experience of citizens in using digital channels to reach government services. Another challenge in public sector is, of course, the silo investments and duplicative efforts by usually reinventing or investing in very similar platforms, and that can be better used if we have a common set of reusable software components instead of monolithic investments on a specific platform that just covers certain requirements of any sector domain among public entities. Another third challenge is how we leverage ICT investment, how we can have procurement processes that are more agile, that are technology neutral, and that foster GovTech ecosystems that are very solid because they work with standards. Is not necessarily the case in all governments around the world. So how do we make the most of the ICT investments portfolio to really reach a scale in digitization of government services? And the fourth challenge that we always see in different collaborations and engagement with governments is in reaching a scale, making sure that all government entities have access to cutting-edge technology, best practices, skills, approaches, frameworks to, in a holistic manner, reshape how they provide services. What we see is some agencies with a lot of capabilities and some other agencies with less resources and less leverage also in how they negotiate the ICT procurement efforts. The good thing is that technology is more accessible now. We have a lot of more capabilities around open source. We also have a global digital ecosystem that is more open and collaborative on different approaches. So in the early days, it was about a few platforms providing certain government services, but today we have a boom of applications, some of them very specific and many different ways to connect each other. The major takeaway is that it is not because we have a lot of platforms that we actually have sounded a strategy in terms of how to use these many platforms in a holistic way, according to live events and user journeys, to actually understand user needs, be more proactive in how to approach those needs and challenges. So architecting this new generation of government services is one of the objectives of the Govstack initiative. What are we seeing as countries move forward in their digital transformation journeys? Meaning when they manage to have a digital agenda in play as part of their overall planning framework, ministries of ICT that are in the process of growing their team, of updating their approaches. Its coordination is encasing their governance framework to be able to leverage in current investments and especially in label the playfield to make sure that all government entities, especially in local and subnational governments, can really leverage the benefits of a digital transformation journey. One other challenge that is very much into Govstack Global is that this approach and this effort should be context driven, and we should be able to build an approach and to build technical specifications that can be adapted according to country needs and priorities, and that's something that is a main principle. What do we see in many of the government offices of today? And this is just an example that reminds us that we still have a lot of journey ahead in making the experience of citizens when accessing government services more meaningful. This is just a picture from a government office where we see a lot of people waiting, a lot of people with documents in their hands, Usually those documents have data, and that document was issued by another government entity, and the citizen is just basically the document holder and the document keeper, instead of having more interoperability among government entities to really facilitate the validation of information, and for the citizens to have all the relevant documents and services in their the most suitable device, either mobile or voice commands activated processes, more than a physical experience, unless connectivity doesn't allow for their mobile accessibility. This is another example. A study made by the Inter-American Development Bank encountered that what makes a digital service complex, and in general a public service complex, has to do with not only having a lot of prerequisites to access a service, and usually those requirements are information or certificates that other government agencies issue to the citizens to be compiled in a set of folder to go and request certain government services. So it's complex language, not using simple ways to explain how the process flows and what are the requirements. It's also that services are now available in a single interaction. On average, in Latin America, countries require 3 or more interactions to complete a transaction when providing government services to their citizens. And the good news is that it doesn't need to be day-to-day operations. So we have great examples. Canada is one of them. Estonia is another good example on how a digital transformation policy that is part of a state priority can really leverage in changing completely how citizens experience digital government services. Another pioneer in reshaping the digital experience of citizens is GovUK. Gov.uk, which is the single domain for all government information and access to digital government services, started their new approach in 2010 with an alpha version, and they did a study back in these days analyzing what would be the benefits of digitizing 100% of government services. And back then, the case study reflected that savings could reach 1.7 billion. Also, within the same UK Digital Efficiency Report, we can go into a deeper analysis in terms of, well, what is the difference between investing in having government public services available in a physical space rather than in a digital channel. And the good news is that, of course, we need to have a very strategic way to approach ICT investments, but a digital service not only democratizes access to the service from anywhere, anytime, and any device, it is also 5 times lower in their operational cost than a physical service. So there is also a lot of benefit that can be leveraged from a digital transformation journey, and especially targeting digitizing government services. But we need to keep in mind that within this effort of digitizing government services, the experience needs to be memorable, right? We are coming from a 2-year pandemic period that really challenged all digital teams around the world to deliver, to increase significantly the amount of digital services available to the citizens because of the lockdowns, because of the necessity to transfer support to families that were in very restrict conditions, and having that right approach on how to design a digital service, how to architect interoperable solution is extremely important to make sure that the experience when interacting with the service is agile, is simple to understand, that UX, UI techniques were applying to understanding the user context, the user needs, and make it super easy for people to interact and to get what they need. So also digital services should be something think about, and that is considered within the Govstack experience. I like this picture because this is someone from Estonia that has managed to have 99% of government services already available online from anywhere, and any device. Is one of the founder partners of the Govstack Global Initiative. We mentioned Canada Digital Service team that shared in previous presentation about their strategy for shared services and collaboration with building capacities in using this approach with not only federal agencies, but also with local governments. So with this in mind as main motivation, how Govstack has been conceptualized. Basically, is following an approach that many other leading countries are already using, which is focusing on investing in developing and maintaining and evolving foundational building blocks that can be reused across all government services, focusing mainly on reusable software component for identifying the user, authenticating the user, security specifications on how to connect the different microservices within this building block architecture proposal, making sure that we comply with data protection in all different countries in terms of information consent, payment, registration, messaging. And when you think about it, at least 80% of government services can be assembled with or architect or integrate using these foundational building blocks. We then have common applications that can also be reusable components, like, for example, Notify, or e-learning platforms or e-marketplaces that can be used for different sector domains across government. And finally, end-to-end live event user journey approach on how to articulate and play with these different Legos or building blocks in integrating a solution that should be very easy to put into life for citizens to experience this type of digital services. Another good example is Estonia, and Estonia has many years of not only working in the open, but also sharing the cost of developing their common infrastructure, like the interoperability platform called X-Road, with more than 4 members now of the Nordic Institute of Interoperability. And the logic is very simple, right? If I'm using this interoperability platform that is open source, I need to invest in maintaining this reusable component. If I partner with different countries that are using this technology, then we can share the cost of keeping it up to date, or making sure that different scenarios coming from a live event analysis come into play, that we have an agile way and a good governance model to keep the technology according to new trends and user needs. There are more than 20 countries around the world that are using X-Road. Only 4 are participating in the consortium, but I think it's a great example on how this approach can really be leveraged at scale by all countries around the world. Other building blocks within the Estonian stack is identity, healthcare, mobility services, and other sector domain applications that are also open source and available to other countries and to other government entities to reuse. India is another good example. India is so huge, so much activities to coordinate and to articulate, but is a leading country in following the same approach. A very strong Indian stack of core building block applications that are reused to co-design new experiences, to support and enable new government services, and a very strong focus on developing local ecosystems within each of the India states following this approach. So Govstack is building on these experiences, and we're looking forward to scale this effort in a global scale. Singapore is another good example that have been working for many years in having a very strong set of building common digital platforms and data, where an entire ecosystem from public and private sector can can use, reuse, and create new digital services based on these building blocks. So having all these examples in mind, an SDG digital investment framework was work with ITU and DIAL to put these best practices into a framing narrative that could guide governments around the world in focusing their ICT investments in building and encasing these reusable capabilities to design better services according to live events. So I encourage all of you to review the document, provide feedback, because we really want to have within the SDG digital investment framework a way to start this conversation with many countries that are working in the implementation of this approach. What are the benefits of working in a reusable software component prioritization investment? Well, first of all, that we experience more agility in the digital service design journey. Is more cost efficient because we focus investment on having reusable software components that are always up to date to current technology trends that work independently but can interoperate, so they become Lego pieces to architect different digital service experiences, that they have a real economic return and allow them to experience seamless one government interaction, and that facilitates the design and delivery of digital services that are responsive, that are integrated, and especially that promotes more participants within the GovTech ecosystem of the different countries in having new ideas and innovation, which is minimizing vendor locking. Data that is relevant to share on how some examples have really encountered a lot of savings using this approach, complementing their international recognition as leaders in the UN Government Development Index is Estonia, which is currently working in a very aggressive roadmap for having 120 services enabled with artificial intelligence and voice commands. Singapore that make a very important bet on this data government blueprint and reuse of digital software components. Australia, Saudi Arabia, that actually Saudi Arabia put a lot of effort in aligning their entire investment in the digital investment framework. So with all this context, what is Govstack about? So this is a multi-partner initiative founded in 2020 by ITU, GIZ from Germany, the government of Estonia, and DIAL as part of the UN Foundation family, with the objective to create and take into a global scale this approach. And over the last 2021, a set of technical working groups were put together to start building technical specifications according to the most common building blocks identified when the digital investment framework was being developed, and that are the most common building blocks in government services around and the world. So once those technical specifications are ready, by the end of this year, we're also expecting to have a sandbox, which will allow 3 major strategic areas to collaborate with partner countries. Number one, to have a very rich community on practice, working and evolving technical specifications of these building blocks, and of course incorporating new one into the building block reusable software component Govstack. Second, to collaborate with partner countries in demonstrating this value proposition by working with a reusable software component approach, showcasing use cases that were developed following these specifications and the software components available in the Govstack sandbox. And 3, to select pilot countries that would like to scale this approach and nationally. How is the current operating structure? And this is a continuous evolving initiative. We have a product committee, which basically is composed of all the countries that are currently in the process of co-designing digital services using this approach. We have a technical committee with different working groups that are focusing on developing the technical specifications. We have the country engagement team that leverage and articulates this engagement. We have an advisory board for the initiative, and a governance committee, which is composed of representatives from each partner organization. This is the 2022 roadmap, and we welcome all comments and suggestions on the incoming waves of building blocks. So already published, and I post all the links in the presentation today, is foundational building blocks. These documents are ready. We are just finishing the licensing text, but you can access them and review them in the Govstack website. And during the first wave, the focus was to work on technical specification associated with registration building block, payments, information mediator, security, identification, and authentication, as well as digital registries. Wave 2 is currently under a tax review process, and is the building blocks that you see in the slide in color red, focusing on technical specifications for consent management, for messaging, for workflow and scheduling. And for wave 3, we are going to set up the working groups in September this year, and we have an open call for contributors. I also have the link in one of the slides, and we really invite all the community to join and to participate and to share with us your different experience to learn in drafting these technical specifications. Wave 3 is focused on geographic information system, marketplaces, cloud specifications, UX, UI, and e-signature. And then based on the learnings and feedback from the first iterations with government, we can collectively decide the incoming waves of reusable software components. Within the implementation phase of this year, the sandbox and the marketplace are very important elements and really make it very easy for any digital team around the world to test this approach and to design service and design, put it into iterations in just hours. Because the technical specifications are there, because a sandbox environment is ready to be tested, and pilot services that correspond or attend certain live events triggers are very easy to put together and to architect. How are we collaborating with the different communities around the world? Since we are in the process of releasing the first set of technical specifications and in the configuration of the sandbox, we are collaborating with different countries around the world with different levels of digital maturity, which is also important. Govstack should be flexible enough to support countries in the different stage of digital transformation, from very mature and leading experiences like Canada, Estonia, Singapore, India, to other countries that are working with this, but maybe they need to reach a scale, and countries that are just beginning to understand how this approach works and how this can add value to their citizens. We have a country engagement that is really focusing co-designing the best way to incorporate this with digital teams in countries, from the scoping phase to raising awareness, not only with digital teams and political leaders, but also with the entire local ecosystem, so they can co-design to incorporate this approach into the digital transformation work. And we follow the principles of digital development initiatives in terms of working with neutrality, building and technical specifications that are generic in terms of technology agnostic. We work with open source technologies. Of course, we are standard-based, and we focus on having a very agile way to implement this approach with a citizen-centric framework. Of course, all the initiatives and especially the use cases that were put into place for the first set of iterations are aligned to the SDG targets agreed by the UN member states. We believe in having a strong Govstack partner ecosystem, so we welcome all interested parties coming from organizations, community of practice, universities, private sector, startups, other governments to contribute in making Govstack Global a set of reusable software components that any government around the world can use, reuse, enhance, and accelerate the process of digitizing government services. This approach, of course, amplifies the impact of other initiatives like digital impact, public infrastructure effort, the digital public goods catalog, and also on and a community of practice among CIOs around the world. So one of the community building activities that we are recently launched last 2 weeks in the World Summit of Information Society is the CIO Digital Leaders Forum. So if in this audience we have CIOs from local or national governments, please, we would like to have your experience being shared in the different dynamics that we have within the forum, either by webinar, either by a podcast, either by showcasing your product teams, how you are using this approach to architect services that are a priority in your context. We have also, here's a video of the Digital Leaders Forum. We are on time. Let me play this, and this confirm that it can be here. Let me make sure that I share the screen with video and play it.
Imagine if for every government transaction that you need to do, it took an average of 5.4 hours, with a lot of that time spent waiting in line, going to the post office, or waiting on hold on the phone. And the civil servants trying to help are spending time trying to find forms, write approvals, and complete all the other necessary paperwork. Digital technologies offer a solution, delivering faster services, secure self-service options, and more transparent processes. But implementing digital technologies is not without risk. Poor implementation can lead to even greater problems than what they were trying to solve. This is where building blocks come in. Building blocks offer a way forward with enterprise-ready, reusable software that can power workflows across multiple sectors. Designed for scalability and interoperability, they have the potential to help governments save time and accelerate the development and deployment of government services. To support countries in their implementation of building blocks for digital services, the Govstack CIO Forum will offer a unique meeting point where information officers can learn about past implementations, share practices and concerns, and develop strategies on how to move forward. We are building on the lessons of those who have recently been implementing building blocks. When Mexico was developing GovMX, they actively pursued conversations with other countries, finding that knowledge sharing saves time and helped accelerate their learning curve. Through webinars, videos, in-person and virtual discussions, and more, the Govstack CIO Leaders Forum empowers users to engage around digital technologies and the building block approach. Join us today through govstack.global to become part of this journey.
So I hope you are super enthusiastic about participating in the CIO Digital Leaders Forum. During the launch of the forum, we have the opportunity to have the CIOs of 6 countries, Egypt, Ukraine, Rwanda, Peru, Estonia, and India. And we are preparing the other iteration of the forum, so we really welcome all suggestions on how to make also these sharing experiences meaningful and a way to build capacity within digital teams around the world. So how to get involved, and with this I'm going to be closing to open up for Q&A. We have the first wave of building blocks specifications already published. So please, we welcome all your comments. We are in the process of finalizing the licensing text to be able to release them in Gitbook with Markdown, but All documents are already ready for your consultation. Wave 2, as I mentioned, is within the technical review process, but first set of version of the documents are also available for your consultation and review. And for wave 3, we are in the process of call for expert contributors. So you can find all information in the Govstack website. We really encourage and we want to have a very diverse pool of experts participating in the working groups. Of course, we can adapt to your time availability, to your certain areas of interest, but we want this to be a global community-driven effort. We also would like to share with all of you, and please help us spread the word, that within the Globe Summit on Information Society, we launch a special category of the WISIS Prize, which is a global recognition that is due in annual basis during the World Summit of Information Society. So for the 2023 edition, we're going to have a special category, and we look forward to recognize digital service teams around the world in digital service design experiences using a building block approach. So to summarize, we welcome all of you in Govstack initiative by becoming a reference implementation country, by participating actively in the developing of new building blocks specifications, by sharing your learning, your experiences, your best practices in incorporating this approach in the digital transformation journey of the community of the ecosystem where you are actively participate, and of course to encourage other communities to join this effort, to commit to leverage the most of a digital transformation journey in really making the life of people easy, in increasing their quality of life, in anticipating their needs, and in making digital experience and digital services available to everyone. Here is all our contact information. And with that, I get back to you, Bob, for the Q&A. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Yolanda, for a fascinating presentation. It's really heartening to see that it's moved so relatively quickly in a relatively short amount of time. So my hat's off to you. I've got a couple of questions that we have for you. One of the first ones is, what are the prerequisites that a country should have to be able to join this program and benefit from it?
Basically, just reach out to us and have the willingness to participate, and especially to identify where the partnering country is at in the incorporation of this approach in the digital transformation journey. So we have countries very active in the technical working groups, drafting the technical specifications. Others that are more interested in using the technical specifications as reference specifications for their current implementation. And we have others that do both, actively participate in the technical working groups and are using the software components, technical specifications, to start the co-design of key use priority cases that went into a process in a very interactive engagement framework that we have to identify key areas where we would like to pilot this approach. So every country engagement is different because every country has a different context and priority. So when we start initial conversations within the discovery phase, we sit down and we co-design together how we envision this approach could add value. So it's a very personalized way to interact and to co-design together with the country and especially the local ecosystem, how to go about implementing this approach.
Okay, great. What we have is a question, is the private sector using the Govstack service patterns to provide Govstack compliant products?
We are in the process of co-designing the compliance process. Since we just released the first set of technical specifications, one of the work streams during this year is that as we start having reference implementation, using the technical specifications, we're going to have enough elements to start co-designing the first version of the compliance process. And we do have private companies participating in the working groups as well.
Thank you. Question. Azure has Azure Government for the United States, and Amazon Web Services has Amazon Web Services GovCloud in the US. Could you share if any European government has something similar to that, or the European Union has something similar to that?
Could you please elaborate a little bit more?
Okay. Are there any cloud service providers providing globally services that in Europe and the like that could potentially be a carrier for your Govstack services?
Okay, so we have the sandbox. This is an open tendering process, and of course the sandbox is going to be hosted in a cloud. So we are right now in the process of evaluating the proposals. So the Govstack sandbox is going to be hosted in a cloud service based on the results of the tendering process. But the premise and the principle of Govstack effort is that this should be technology and vendor agnostic, meaning that each country could have their own policies on how to approach cloud services, and they can refer to Govstack technical specifications. If you remember the roadmap, wave 3 includes cloud recommendations, especially in architecting microservices and that are easy to assemble and to use independently. But it's in each country right and autonomy to decide which cloud services they would like to use. The premise is that technical specifications are technology agnostic.
Okay, and the last question, okay, is are the CIO Leaders Forum that you talked about, are those episodes available for streaming?
Yes, those episodes are going to be available in Govstack website in the coming weeks. They are already available in the WISI's website. I didn't put it here, but I can definitely add it. We are just processing the content. So we have the short clips and the presentations within the Govstack website. But if you are super eager to learn from the experiences, because they were very good interventions, the videos are already uploaded in the WISI's platform and it's open access.
Okay, and the last question. Whoops, there we go. And the last question is, what effect does implementation of the general data protection regulations have on the design and operation of Govstack? That's the GDPR.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's one of the technical specifications that we are releasing in wave 2, which is the information consent reusable component. So the objective is that we have a general technical specifications that in each country, according to the regulation that applies to that particular country, can customize. So the information consent building block is coming in the second quarter of this year, and thus takes into account those principles, but also send a very clear message that these technical specifications are standards that can be customized, of course, to comply with local regulations in terms of data protection.
Well, that brings the presentation to an end. Thank you ever so much, Yolanda, for taking the time to present to this forum. It is greatly appreciated. And anyways, whatever, I look forward to participating in the Govstack effort. Well, I'm already through the open group, because there's a joint effort. So I really appreciate this opportunity that you came to speak and explain what Govstack is, because I think it's important. And also not just what Govstack can bring to Canada, but also what Canada can bring to Govstack. And
totally, and we are very much looking forward to increasing the community of practice. We value all the contributions of experts like you, Dr. Pala, that I also signed the lineup of the speakers. This is a community effort, and the more partners and the more collaboration we have, the better we are in accomplishing the objective of having a Govstack global set of technical specifications and software components available for any country and any organization around the world. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Okay, folks, this brings our morning session pretty well to an end. I just want to make you aware that we have 3 streams in the afternoon. One's digital transformation in emerging nations. Well, we will be hearing Denis Cesar from the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. He's talking about a methodology to measure global e-government progress. This is every 2 years they put out a report on e-government globally, and it's really very interesting reading. Then we have Dr. Ransford Mensah. He's with the country lead, United Nations Digital Impact Alliance, and he'll be talking about Sierra Leone and where that's being implemented. Then later on in the afternoon, I'll be giving a presentation on embedding innovation into digital transformation. That'll be the last session. Then we have government design and innovation using enterprise architecture. We have Jita Nulalia. She's going to be coming in and talking. She's the manager of the Canadian Government Enterprise Architecture. She'll be talking about the framework and governance. And then we have Bruno Ouellette, who's the Director of Enterprise Architecture for the Canadian Border Services Agency. And he'll be talking about digital transformation at CBSA using enterprise architecture. He's been there for a long time and he has a story to tell. And then we'll have Christian Sauvé, who's the Chief Enterprise Architect at the Public Service Commission. And he'll be talking about evolving enterprise architecture and digital transformation in a small agency. So it's not one size fits all. The last stream will be leading digital transformation in government. Pascal Elvis, who's the Executive Director, Transformation and Strategy Sector, Office of the CIO, will be talking about digital transformation in the Government of Canada. And then we have a panel session led by the new Chief Data Officer for the Government of Canada, Stephen Burt, and he'll be bringing along some of his executive directors, Robert Trottier, Jennifer Schofield, and Benoit Dehaye, who's the interim director for introduction of artificial intelligence into the Canadian government. And then we'll be having a Dr. Eric Champagne and Sylvana Gomes, and they're going to be talking about intergovernment relations in the context of governmental digitalization initiatives. He's actually on the ground at the Ivory Coast right now. Okay, and he's basically dealing with the Francophonie as well as the Commonwealth. To wrap up the day, we're going to have a great presentation by Rachel Porteous. She's the CIO over at FinTrack, Financial Tracking Agency, and she'll be talking about digital transformation of a high security organization in the era of COVID. She's been very successful. I've had the pleasure of working for her many years ago, and I really would recommend that you attend that particular session. She's also been one of the pioneers of women dealing in information technology within the Government of Canada. So that concludes the morning session. Okay, my name is Bob Wiseman. I'm the chair of the conference, and I hope that you found the morning session interesting. We'll be posting the presentations. I know I get constantly asked that. Basically, we'll be posting the recordings of the presentations and then the actual presentations themselves forthwith, probably within, expected less than 2 weeks. Okay, so they will be, and you'll be notified of that. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll let you have a quick bite of lunch. Remember, we're getting together again. We're starting again at 12:30. Okay, not 1 o'clock. Thank you very much.